The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars like a giant metal flower with 47 petals. Each petal housed a different alien species and their diplomatic teams. The center of this flower held the Grand Assembly Chamber where decisions that affected entire galaxies were made. Ambassador Ji-won Kim walked through the curved corridors of the human section with steady steps. Her black diplomatic uniform was simple compared to the colorful robes and strange armor worn by other species. She had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years now and had learned to read the mood of the station by the sounds it made. Today, those sounds were different. The usual hum of peaceful discussion was replaced by sharp clicks and angry growls from dozens of alien throats. Captain Do-Yun Park waited for her at the airlock that led to the central chamber. His ship Soul's Pride was docked nearby, and he could see the nervous energy in the way other alien vessels moved around the station. Too many warships for a normal diplomatic meeting, he thought. They have been talking about us for 3 days, Ji-won said, as they walked together toward the chamber. The Valdorians called for this emergency session, and every species answered. All 47 of them, Do-hyun replied. Even the ones that never leave their home systems sent representatives. The Grand Assembly Chamber was a sphere large enough to hold a small city. Each species had their own section with gravity and atmosphere controls that kept them comfortable. The humans had been given a small area near the bottom of the sphere, which many considered an insult. Ji-won had always thought it was perfect, because she could see everyone else, while they had to crane their necks or adjust their visual organs to look down at her. Chairman Veltar stood at the center of the sphere on a platform that rotated slowly, so all species could see him clearly. He was a Kethmar, which meant he looked like a living crystal formation about 3 meters tall. When he spoke, his voice came from resonating chambers inside his body and translated into every language at once. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Veltar began, and his crystal face shifted colors to show he was addressing a serious matter. We gather today to discuss a threat that grows with each passing cycle. The species called humans has expanded beyond acceptable limits. Ji-won sat in her chair and kept her face blank while 46 different types of alien eyes focused on her. She had expected this day for months. The signs had been clear to anyone who knew how to read galactic politics. Too many questions about human colony ships. Too many requests for information about human technology. Too many worried discussions that stopped when humans entered rooms. The Valdorian representative stood first. Zekmor was typical for his species with gray skin that looked like stone and 4 arms that moved independently of each other. In 200 cycles, the humans have established colonies in 17 systems. This expansion rate is unprecedented and dangerous. A chorus of agreement came from around the chamber in dozens of languages that sounded like everything from singing, crystals to grinding metal. Ji-won noticed that not every species was joining in. The Altarian delegation remained silent, and she could see several others who seemed uncomfortable with the proceedings. Furthermore, Zekmor continued while his upper arms gestured dramatically. Humans have developed faster than light travel technology that surpasses our own understanding. They refuse to share this knowledge with the Council, which violates the spirit of galactic cooperation. This time, the chorus was louder, and Ji-won could see that even some of the neutral species were nodding their various types of heads. The accusation about hoarding technology was partially true. Humanity had indeed developed some unique approaches to FTL travel, but they had also requested to join several Council research projects and been refused membership because they were too young as a spacefaring civilization. A Mordian delegate rose next, and the chamber fell silent. The Mordians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and their opinions carried great weight. This one looked like a giant octopus with silver skin and eyes that could see across multiple spectrums of light. When it spoke, its tentacles moved in patterns that added meaning to its words. The human expansion pattern shows clear signs of militaristic thinking, the Mordian said while its tentacles coiled and uncoiled. They establish colonies in strategic locations that could support large fleets. They build infrastructure that serves no purpose except to support military operations. Most concerning, they show no signs of slowing their expansion despite repeated diplomatic suggestions. Ji-won knew this was false. Human colonies were placed where they were because those systems had planets suitable for human life or resources needed for human technology. The infrastructure the Mordian called military was simply the robust support systems humans built, because they had learned from history that civilizations needed redundancy to survive disasters. But she said nothing and waited. More species spoke, and the pattern became clear. Each had a complaint about human behavior that sounded reasonable on the surface, but ignored the context of human history and needs. The crystalline sector complained that humans strip-mined asteroids too efficiently. The gaseous Velern were upset that humans built enclosed habitats instead of sharing atmosphere with other species. The insectoid Clictar found human individual decision-making processes chaotic and unpredictable. After 2 hours of complaints, Chairman Veltar called for order, and the chamber grew quiet. Ambassador Kim, you have heard the concerns of the Council. How does your species respond to these observations? Jiwan stood slowly and looked around the chamber at 46 species that represented trillions of beings across the galaxy. Most of them had achieved spaceflight before humans had invented the wheel. Several had built galactic empires while Earth was still covered in ice. They were ancient and wise and powerful, and they were all staring at her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. The human government appreciates the Council's interest in our development, she said in a voice that carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. We are always willing to discuss matters of mutual concern with our galactic neighbors. She paused and let her words settle. It was a diplomatic non-answer that gave away nothing about human intentions while sounding respectful. She had learned this technique from studying how other species dealt with the Council's occasional demands. However, she continued, humanity would like to better understand the specific nature of the Council's concerns. Are you suggesting that human expansion has violated established territorial boundaries? No, Veltar admitted after checking with several other delegates. Human colonies have been established in unclaimed systems. Are you claiming that human technology poses a direct threat to Council member species? Not directly, Zekmor answered when Veltar looked to him. But the potential for misuse exists. Have human colonies engaged in hostile actions against any Council member? No documented incidents, the Mordian delegate said reluctantly. But their military preparations suggest future aggression. Jiwan nodded as if this information was helpful. Then humanity is being judged not for actions taken, but for the theoretical possibility of future actions based on the interpretation of our normal development patterns. The chamber erupted in angry sounds as multiple species tried to speak at once. Veltar had to use his authority as chairman to restore order, and when he did, the mood had shifted noticeably. Jiwan had just pointed out that the Council was essentially putting humanity on trial for crimes they had not committed. The concern, Veltar said carefully, is that human expansion and technological development follows patterns that historically have led to galactic conflicts. The Council has a responsibility to prevent such conflicts before they begin. We understand the Council's position, Jiwan replied with the same calm tone she had maintained throughout the session. What specific actions does the Council believe would address these concerns? This was the moment everyone had been building toward, and the chamber fell completely silent. Veltar's crystal body shifted through several colors before settling on a deep red that indicated he was about to deliver an ultimatum. The Galactic Council requires that humanity immediately cease all expansion beyond the Sol system. All existing colonies must be abandoned within one standard cycle. Human faster-than-light technology must be surrendered to Council oversight for analysis and regulation. Human military forces must submit to inspection and limitation by Council peacekeeping forces. The silence that followed was absolute. 46. Species waited to see how the young upstart humans would respond to demands that would effectively end their existence as an independent civilization. Captain Park shifted slightly in his seat, but Jiwan remained perfectly still. These are significant requests, she said finally. Humanity will need time to consider the full implications and discuss them with our government. How much time? The Mordian asked with obvious suspicion. 30 standard days should be sufficient for proper deliberation. Veltar consulted with other Council members through private communication channels before responding. The Council agrees. You have 30 days to provide your final answer. If humanity refuses to comply, the Council will be forced to take corrective measures to ensure galactic stability. Jiwan Bao. The celebration on Valdoria Prime began 3 hours after the ultimatum was delivered to the humans. Zekmore stood on the balcony of the Strategic Planning Center and watched fireworks explode over the capital city below. The display was premature, in his opinion, but he understood why his people were excited. For the first time in centuries, the Valdorian military would have a chance to demonstrate their superiority over an upstart species. Inside the planning center, dozens of Valdorian officers worked at holographic displays that showed the human colonies scattered across 17 systems. Each colony was marked with tactical assessments and projected resistance capabilities. The numbers were not impressive. "General, what is your assessment of human military strength?" Zekmore asked as he returned from the balcony. General Mortek was an old soldier whose gray skin bore the ritual scars of 40 different campaigns. He gestured to the largest display with one of his 4 arms, while the others continued working at different control panels. "Pathetic would be generous. They have perhaps 200 ships capable of interstellar travel. Most of these appear to be converted cargo vessels with minimal weaponry. What about their technology advantages?" "Overestimated," Mortek replied dismissively. "Yes, they developed FTL drives faster than expected, but the designs are crude and inefficient. Their ships are slow and lack sophisticated shielding or weapon systems. A single Valdorian dreadnought could destroy their entire fleet." Zekmore nodded, but felt a small nagging doubt that he could not identify. "What about their ground forces? Primitive kinetic weapons mostly. Some energy weapons, but nothing that could penetrate modern armor. Their soldiers appear to rely on mobility and surprise rather than superior equipment, which suggests weakness rather than tactical sophistication." The holographic display showed detailed breakdowns of captured human weapons and equipment. Most of it looked simple and functional rather than advanced. Zekmore had to admit the analysis seemed sound, but something about the human ambassador's calm demeanor continued to bother him. On the other side of the galaxy, similar discussions were taking place on dozens of worlds. The Kethmar Collective had convened their Council of Resonance to discuss the human situation. Chairman Veltar stood before the assembled crystal beings, whose bodies created a symphony of harmonic frequencies as they communicated through sound and vibration. "The humans will submit," declared Resonance Prime Kolvatar, whose massive crystalline form dominated the chamber. "They have no choice when faced with our combined strength. Their expansion rate suggests an aggressive nature," another council member observed. "Perhaps they will choose to fight rather than surrender. Then they will be destroyed quickly," Kolvatar replied, and his crystal body shifted to a confident blue coloration. 47 species against one barely developed civilization. The outcome is inevitable. But not everyone shared this confidence. On the science world of Altaria Prime, Dr. Thelana worked late into the night reviewing files that most other species had dismissed as unimportant. The Altarians were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and thorough research methods. While others celebrated expected victory, Thelana studied human history with growing concern. She pulled up records of human conflicts from their home world and read through translated accounts of their wars. The pattern that emerged was disturbing. Humans seemed to have an unusual relationship with hopeless situations. Instead of surrendering when faced with superior odds, they often fought harder. Instead of seeking peace when defeated, they would regroup and return with new strategies. "Interesting," she muttered as she read about something called the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 humans held off an army of hundreds of thousands. The battle was ultimately lost, but it delayed the larger force long enough for other human settlements to prepare defenses. It was tactical thinking that prioritized long-term strategic advantage over short-term survival. She found dozens of similar examples. Humans trapped in a city called Stalingrad who fought building by building for months. Human forces at a place called the Alamo who fought to the death rather than surrender. A human leader named Churchill who convinced his entire species to continue fighting when defeat seemed certain. Most disturbing was the pattern of human technological development during conflicts. When faced with superior enemies, they did not simply build better versions of existing weapons. They invented entirely new types of warfare: chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. Each innovation came from humans who found themselves losing conventional conflicts. Thelana opened a communication channel to the Altarian representative at Nexus Prime. Ambassador Felnor, I need you to request detailed information about current human military capabilities. The Valdorians have already provided comprehensive intelligence reports, Felnor replied. Human military strength is minimal. I want independent verification. Something about their historical patterns suggests we may be missing important information. There was a pause before Felnor responded. I will make discreet inquiries, but the Council leadership seems confident in the existing assessments. While the aliens debated human strength, the actual humans were far from idle. Captain Park's ship Soul's Pride arrived at Luna Station exactly 18 hours after leaving Nexus Prime. The massive orbital facility around Earth's moon had been humanity's primary spaceport for over 50 years, but today it buzzed with unusual activity. Admiral Jae-hwan Choi waited for them at the docking bay. His weathered face showed the strain of the past few days, as emergency meetings and crisis planning sessions had consumed every hour since the Council's ultimatum became known. Ambassador, how bad is it? As bad as we expected, Ji-won replied as they walked through corridors filled with uniformed personnel moving with obvious urgency. Complete surrender or war with 47 species. Time frame: 30 days. Admiral Choi stopped walking and stared at her. That's not enough time to evacuate 17 colonies. They don't want us to evacuate, Ji-won said quietly. They want us to abandon the colonies and return to Earth as a species confined to one system, which we obviously cannot do. No, we cannot. They resumed walking toward the secured conference rooms where Earth's leadership waited for the ambassador's report. Along the way, Ji-won noticed things that an alien observer might have missed. The personnel moving through the corridors were not panicking despite the crisis. Their movements were efficient and purposeful. They had trained for this possibility. The leisure conference room held representatives from every major human government and military organization. President Minji Lee sat at the head of the table with her usual calm expression, but Ji-won could see the tension in her shoulders. General Yoon-ji Song reviewed tactical displays while Dr. Seung-min Han worked at a portable computer terminal. Report, President Lee said simply, as Ji-won and Admiral Choi took their seats. The Council made their demands exactly as our intelligence predicted. Complete withdrawal from all colonies, surrender of FTL technology, submission to alien oversight, and military limitations. Ji-won spoke clearly while making eye contact with each person at the table. They expect us to comply because they believe we have no other choice. What did you tell them? That we would consider their request and provide an answer within 30 days. General Song looked up from her displays. Did they buy it? Completely. They expect us to surrender because from their perspective, we are hopelessly outnumbered and technologically inferior. Dr. Han spoke without looking up from his computer. Perfect. The longer they believe that the more time we have to complete preparations. What is the current status of Protocol 0? President Lee asked. Admiral Choi activated a secured holographic display that showed the positions of human ships throughout known space. Instead of the 200 vessels that alien intelligence estimated, the display showed over 3,000 ships scattered across dozens of systems. Most were not visible to alien sensors because they were powered down and drifting in empty space between stars. All deep space assets are in position, Admiral Choi reported. Ghost fleets have been maintaining communication silence for 6 months. Stealth reconnaissance teams are embedded in all major alien systems. Combat engineering units have completed sabotage preparations at key infrastructure targets. Intelligence operations, Director Woo Bin-yoon had been so quiet that several people had forgotten he was in the room. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Penetration of alien communication networks is complete. We have real-time access to military communications for 38 of the 47 Council species. Sleeper agents are active in all major alien governments. President Lee nodded slowly. Then we are as ready as we can be within the time constraints. There is one more thing, Ji-won said. and everyone turned to look at her. I think at least some of them suspect this might not go as they expect. Which ones? The Altarians have been asking too many questions about our military capabilities. Their research methods are more thorough than the others. How much do they know? Probably not enough to change the overall situation, but enough to ask uncomfortable questions, if given time. General Song smiled grimly. Then we make sure they don't have time. The meeting continued for several more hours as department heads provided updates on various aspects of humanity's preparation. Dr. Seung-Min Han stood in the center of a laboratory that officially did not exist. The facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Europa, and its location appeared on no government records. Even the construction crews who built it believed they were creating a mining operation. Only 17 people in the entire human government knew what really happened in these sterile white corridors. Show me the current status of Project Iceberg, Han said to his assistant, Dr. Yura Kim, who worked at a control console surrounded by holographic displays. All 18 facilities are operational, Yura reported while manipulating data streams with practiced efficiency. Production is ahead of schedule thanks to the new automated assembly systems. The displays showed manufacturing facilities scattered across human space, each one disguised as something innocent. A terraforming station near Alpha Centauri was actually producing advanced missile systems. A research facility studying gas giant atmospheres was manufacturing electromagnetic pulse devices. An asteroid mining operation was building something that the aliens would not recognize until it was too late to stop it. What about the new propulsion systems? Han asked while reviewing technical specifications that scrolled past faster than most people could read. Testing is complete. The drives produce no detectable emissions and can accelerate a frigate-sized vessel to 0.9 light speed in 36 hours. Han nodded with satisfaction. The aliens believed human FTL technology was crude and slow because that was exactly what humanity had wanted them to believe. Every human ship that traveled through alien space used deliberately inefficient drive systems that made them appear technologically inferior. Meanwhile, the real advances in human propulsion technology had been hidden in secret research programs for over a decade. Timeline for deployment. All ships can be retrofitted within 22 days if we begin immediately. While Han supervised humanity's technological preparations, President Lee convened another meeting in the Global Defense Council, Chambers. This time, the attendees included not just Earth's leadership, but representatives from every human colony. The holographic projectors showed faces from across 17 star systems, each one displaying the calm determination that had become humanity's trademark response to impossible odds. Colony status reports, President Lee requested, and waited, while each representative provided updates. New Shanghai colony reports all civilians have been evacuated to underground shelters, announced Governor Hyunwoo Park from the Tau Ceti system. Military personnel are maintaining normal operations to avoid suspicion, but all non-essential infrastructure has been hardened against attack. Similar reports came from every human settlement. To alien surveillance, it would appear that the colonies were preparing for shutdown and abandonment as demanded by the Council. In reality, they were transforming into military strongholds capable of withstanding prolonged siege operations. What about the manufacturing centers? Asked General Song. All primary production facilities have been relocated to hidden installations, reported Admiral Soyan Kang, whose image appeared from a location that was not identified in the transmission. Surface operations are continuing with skeleton crews to maintain the illusion of normal activity. President Lee studied Admiral Kang's image carefully. Officially, Kang commanded a small patrol fleet responsible for protecting the outer colonies. Unofficially, she led the largest military force in human history from a base that existed in the empty space between galaxies. Your operational status. Admiral, ready for immediate deployment on your order, Madam President. Estimated time to reach all primary targets. Simultaneous arrival in all 47 systems within 6 hours of departure. The casual way Kang delivered this information sent a chill through the room. She was discussing military operations on a galactic scale as if they were routine patrol missions. The precision required to coordinate attacks across such distances was staggering, and the fact that humanity could accomplish it demonstrated just how far their real capabilities had advanced. Director Yoon appeared on another holographic display with his usual shadowy background that revealed nothing about his location. Intelligence update. Alien monitoring of human communications continues to show they believe we are preparing for surrender. Their confidence in the outcome has increased over the past week. Any signs they suspect our real intentions? The Altarians continue to ask questions, but their requests for additional intelligence have been denied by the Council leadership. The Valdorians are so convinced of easy victory that they have begun planning victory celebrations. President Lee allowed herself a small smile. How unfortunate for them. What about reaction times once we begin operations? Computer models suggest initial confusion will last between 4 and 6 hours. Coordinated response is unlikely for at least 12 hours. Full military mobilization will require 3 to 5 days minimum. More than enough time, General Song observed with professional satisfaction. The meeting continued for hours as each aspect of the plan was reviewed and refined. To anyone monitoring human communications, it would sound like bureaucratic discussions about compliance procedures and resource management. But every phrase had double meanings that only humans understood. When President Lee mentioned ensuring smooth transitions, she was actually authorizing the activation of sleeper agents embedded in alien governments. When Admiral Choi discussed transportation logistics, he was confirming the positions of hidden attack fleets. When Dr. Han talked about technical specifications, he was reporting on weapons systems that would revolutionize space warfare. As the meeting ended, President Lee remained at the table while the holographic displays slowly faded. General Song and Admiral Choi stayed behind to discuss final details of what would soon become the largest military operation in human history. Are we really going to do this? Song asked quietly. Fight 47 species simultaneously. We are not fighting 47 species, President Lee replied calmly. We are fighting 47 governments. Most of their populations will never know what happened until it is over, and if we lose, we will not lose because we cannot afford to lose. Surrender means the end of human independence and the beginning of alien oversight over every aspect of our civilization. That is not acceptable. Admiral Choi studied tactical displays that showed the current positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. The odds are still overwhelming even with our advantages. The odds were overwhelming at Thermopylae, President Lee said with a slight smile. The odds were overwhelming at Midway. The odds were overwhelming when we landed on Normandy Beach. Humans have always done their best work when the odds were overwhelming. While Earth's leadership made final preparations, the alien species continued their celebrations. On Valdoria Prime, General Mortek reviewed invasion plans for human colonies with eager anticipation. His staff had identified the weakest targets and planned swift, overwhelming strikes that would demoralize any human resistance. Begin with the outlying settlements, he instructed his subordinates. Demonstrate our superiority quickly, and the core worlds will surrender without fighting. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Valdorian forces would destroy 2 or 3 isolated human colonies while overwhelming the local defenders. News of these defeats would reach Earth and convince the human government that resistance was futile. Total human surrender would follow within days. On Kethmar Prime, Chairman Veltar prepared for what he expected would be a brief and decisive conflict. The crystal beings had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years, but their automated defense systems remained formidable. More importantly, their alliance with dozens of other species meant they could bring crushing numerical superiority to bear against any opponent. The humans will realize their situation is hopeless once hostilities begin, Veltar declared to the Council of Resonance. This will be the shortest war in galactic history. But on Altaria Prime, Dr. Thelana continued her research into human behavior patterns with growing unease. She had requested detailed information about current human military preparations, but her government had refused to authorize intelligence-gathering missions. The official position was that the Valdorian assessment was sufficient. Thelana disagreed. Her analysis of human historical data suggested they were dealing with a species that became more dangerous when cornered, rather than more cooperative. Every major human conflict had ended with technological and tactical innovations that changed the nature of warfare itself. Chemical weapons in one war, nuclear weapons in another. advanced electronics and precision-guided munitions in a third. What are they developing now? She wondered, while reviewing the limited intelligence available about human research activities. Most human scientific installations appeared to be conducting routine terraforming and industrial research, but Thelana had learned to distrust appearances when dealing with humans. She composed a detailed report outlining her concerns and transmitted it to every major alien government. The response was swift and dismissive. The Valdorians accused her of being influenced by human propaganda. The Kethmar suggested she was suffering from analysis paralysis. Even her own government advised her to trust the collective wisdom of the Council rather than pursuing unnecessary research. The Grand Assembly Chamber of Nexus Prime filled with alien representatives exactly 30 days after the ultimatum had been delivered. Chairman Veltar took his position at the center of the rotating platform, while 46 species arranged themselves in their designated sections. The mood was confident and expectant as everyone waited for humanity's inevitable surrender. Ambassador Ji-won Kim entered the chamber at precisely the appointed time, accompanied by Captain Park and 2 other human officials. Her expression was the same calm mask she had worn 30 days earlier, and her diplomatic uniform showed no signs of stress or urgency. To the assembled aliens, she appeared to be a defeated negotiator, preparing to deliver her species' capitulation. Ambassador Kim. Chairman Veltar began with crystal formations shifting to show formal authority. The 30-day period has concluded. What is humanity's response to the Council's requirements? Ji-won stood slowly and looked around the chamber at thousands of alien eyes focused on her. The silence was absolute, as every species waited to hear the words that would confirm their superiority over the upstart humans. She opened a small datapad and appeared to read from prepared remarks. The Earth Coalition has carefully reviewed the Galactic Council's demands, she began in the same measured tone that had characterized all her diplomatic communications. Our government has consulted with colonial administrations and military leadership to fully understand the implications of compliance. She paused, and several alien representatives shifted impatiently in their seats. The Valdorian delegation looked particularly eager to hear the surrender that would justify their military preparations. After thorough deliberation and extensive discussion, the Earth Coalition has reached a unanimous decision regarding the Council's ultimatum. Another pause as Ji-won closed the datapad and looked directly at Chairman Veltar. Her expression remained perfectly neutral, but something in her eyes had changed. The calm diplomatic mask was still in place, but underneath it was something cold and hard and absolutely uncompromising. We respectfully decline. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds as dozens of species tried to speak simultaneously. Angry clicks and growls and harmonic resonances filled the air while Chairman Veltar struggled to restore order. Several alien representatives stood and gestured aggressively, while others activated communication devices to report this unexpected development to their home governments. Ambassador Kim. Veltar finally managed to speak over the chaos. Perhaps you do not fully understand the consequences of refusing the Council's reasonable demands. We understand perfectly, Ji-won replied with the same calm tone she had maintained throughout the crisis. The question is whether you understand the consequences of making those demands. The chamber fell silent again as the implications of her words sank in. This was not the response of a defeated species begging for mercy. This was the voice of someone who believed they held a stronger position than their opponents realized. Zekmor stood in the Valdorian section with all 4 arms, gesturing angrily. You cannot seriously believe that one primitive species can stand against the combined might of 47 civilizations. We do not believe it, Ji-won said, while maintaining eye contact with the Valdorian representative. We know it before anyone could respond. Alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. The massive space station's defensive systems detected incoming threats, but the sensor readings made no sense. Objects were approaching from multiple directions at impossible speeds, while somehow remaining nearly invisible to detection systems. Commander Hyokmin Nam materialized in the chamber as his stealth suit deactivated. One moment, the space next to the human delegation was empty, and the next moment, a figure in advanced combat armor was standing there with a weapon trained on Chairman Veltar. Similar figures appeared throughout the chamber as human special forces teams revealed themselves in every alien section. How? The Mordian delegate managed to ask, while its tentacles coiled in defensive patterns. We have been preparing for this conversation for quite some time, Jiwan said, as if armed soldiers appearing from thin air was a normal part of diplomatic negotiations. Did you really think we would attend this meeting without taking appropriate precautions? Outside the station, Seoul's Pride was no longer alone. Captain Park's single escort vessel had been joined by hundreds of human ships that seemed to materialize from empty space. Advanced stealth technology that had been hidden from alien observers for years now revealed the true size of the human fleet present at Nexus Prime, but the real shock was still coming. Throughout the galaxy, every major alien military installation and government center was experiencing similar surprises as human forces revealed themselves in positions that should have been impossible to reach undetected. Director Yoon's voice spoke from hidden speakers throughout the chamber. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other forms of sentient life, you are experiencing a practical demonstration of human intelligence capabilities. For the past 5 years, we have been systematically infiltrating your governments, your military organizations, and your communications networks. The holographic displays throughout the chamber activated to show scenes from across alien space. Valdorian, military headquarters where human agents had disabled defensive systems. Kethmar communication centers where crystal beings stood confused as their networks went offline. Mordian fleet bases where ships found themselves unable to launch as their docking systems refused to respond. This is impossible, several alien voices declared simultaneously. Our security systems are impenetrable. Your security systems were designed by species that achieve technological advancement through careful incremental progress over thousands of years, Director Yoon explained patiently. Human security systems are designed by a species that considers warfare to be a science and paranoia to be a survival trait. More displays activated showing the scope of human preparations. Ghost fleets that had been hiding in interstellar space for months now moved toward alien systems with coordination that suggested planning on an unprecedented scale. Manufacturing facilities disguised as mining operations revealed their true purpose as advanced weapons systems came online. Research stations that had appeared to study peaceful applications of technology began producing military equipment with efficiency that defied alien understanding. Admiral Choi's image appeared on the central display addressing the assembled council. Alien governments are experiencing technical difficulties with their military and communication systems. These difficulties will continue until the council agrees to discuss revised terms for human participation in galactic affairs. You cannot do this, Chairman Veltar declared, while his crystal body shifted through angry red colorations. The Council represents 47 species with millions of warships. You have revealed perhaps 1,000 vessels. We have revealed the ships we wanted you to see, Admiral Choi corrected politely. The actual size of human military forces is somewhat larger. The displays changed to show star charts marked with the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Instead of the few hundred ships, alien intelligence had estimated the real number appeared to be in the tens of thousands. Each fleet was positioned to strike at critical alien infrastructure while remaining close enough to support each other if the situation escalated to full warfare. Fleet Admiral Kang's voice joined. The communication from her position commanding the largest concentration of human ships in galactic history. Council representatives should be aware that human forces are currently in position to neutralize the primary military assets of all member species simultaneously. We prefer not to take such drastic action, but we are prepared to do so if necessary. Thurbo. Chamber was completely silent now as the magnitude of human preparations became clear. This was not a desperate last stand by a cornered species. This was a carefully planned operation that had been years in the making and was being executed with precision that suggested human military capabilities far exceeded anything the aliens had imagined. President Lee's image appeared on every display. Throughout Nexus Prime, as she addressed both the Council and the human fleet simultaneously. Council members, we did not seek this confrontation, but we will not submit to demands that would end human independence. You have presented us with a choice between surrender and war. We choose a third option. What third option? The Mordian. Delegate asked with obvious fear in its voice. Negotiation between equals, President Lee replied firmly. The Galactic Council will be restructured to provide genuine representation for all species, including humanity. The current system of domination by elder species will be replaced with democratic governance based on mutual respect and shared authority. And if we refuse? Veltar asked, though his crystal formation had already shifted to colors that indicated he was considering surrender. Then humanity will withdraw from galactic affairs entirely and establish our own interstellar community, President Lee said with absolute certainty. We will build our own trade networks, our own defensive alliances, and our own system of governance. The choice is yours. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing panic as they realized the impossible had happened. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the human demonstration at Nexus Prime. Chairman Veltar called for order, but the chamber was filled with chaos as 46 species tried to speak simultaneously about the impossible situation they now faced. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages, while their governments transmitted increasingly desperate reports about human forces appearing throughout their territory. Order, Veltar demanded, while his crystal body resonated with authority frequencies. We must respond to this crisis with wisdom rather than panic. General Mortek stood in the Valdorian section, but his usual confidence had been replaced by barely controlled rage. Wisdom. The humans have made fools of us all. They infiltrated our most secure installations and positioned fleets in systems we thought were empty. How is this possible? More importantly, the Mordian delegate added with tentacles writhing in agitation. What do we do about it? Dr. Thelana appeared on a holographic display from Altaria Prime, where she had been monitoring human activities since the crisis began. I tried to warn you, she said with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. Human behavioral patterns indicated they would not submit to ultimatums. Their history shows consistent escalation when faced with superior odds. Your warnings were noted, Veltar replied stiffly. But no one predicted they possessed military capabilities on this scale. Because we were looking for the wrong things, Thelana continued. We searched for large fleets and obvious weapons production. Humans built small modular ships that could be assembled quickly and disguised weapons manufacturing as civilian industry. We monitored their communications for military planning. They conducted their real planning through channels we never suspected existed. The displays around the chamber showed real-time updates from across alien space. Human forces had appeared in every major system, but they were not attacking. Instead, they were simply present in numbers that made resistance pointless while maintaining defensive positions that suggested they were prepared for any alien response. What are their actual capabilities? Asked the representative from the Sectar Confederacy. Admiral. Choi's image appeared on the central display to answer the question directly. Human military strength currently consists of approximately 15,000 combat vessels organized into 47 separate fleet commands. Each fleet is positioned to neutralize the primary military assets of one council member species. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had built a military force specifically designed to fight every alien species simultaneously rather than hoping to defeat them individually. Additionally, Admiral Choi continued, human cyber warfare capabilities have penetrated all major alien communication and control systems. We can disable your fleets, your infrastructure, and your governments whenever we choose to do so. This is blackmail, Zekmore declared angrily. This is negotiation, President Lee's voice replied as her image joined Admiral Choi on the display. You demanded our surrender. We are offering you partnership instead. What kind of partnership? Chairman Veltar asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would not be to his liking. Equal representation in galactic governance, President Lee said firmly. The current council system grants authority based on age and tradition, rather than contribution or capability. This will change. Fleet Admiral Kang's image appeared alongside the others, showing the scope of human leadership now involved in the negotiations. The human government proposes a new galactic charter based on democratic principles. Each species receives representation proportional to their population and economic contribution rather than their historical status. Impossible, several alien voices declared simultaneously. The elder species have guided galactic development for millions of years, and accomplished what exactly? Dr. Han asked as his image joined the growing collection of human officials. Technological stagnation, economic inequality, political systems that prevent younger species from contributing to galactic progress. Perhaps it is time for new approaches. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing desperation as they realized their options were extremely limited. They could accept human demands for equal treatment, or they could fight a war they were almost certain to lose against an opponent who had demonstrated superior planning and preparation. What guarantees do we have that humans will honor any agreement? The Mordian delegate asked. The same guarantees you offered us, Ambassador Kim replied as she rejoined the communication from Nexus Prime. None beyond our mutual interest in avoiding unnecessary conflict. That is hardly reassuring given your demonstrated capacity for deception. We prefer to call it operational security, Director Yoon said, with what might have been amusement in his voice. But if you require additional assurance, we can provide it. The displays changed to show detailed intelligence files about every alien species represented in the Council. Military capabilities, economic weaknesses, political divisions, internal conflicts. The scope of human intelligence gathering was staggering and demonstrated knowledge of alien affairs that went far beyond what any council member knew about humanity. How long have you been spying on us? Chairman Veltar asked with obvious shock. Since first contact, Director Yoon replied matter-of-factly. Humans have always believed that information is the most important weapon in any conflict. We began studying all of you the moment we learned you existed. While you were deciding whether we were advanced enough to join your exclusive club, we were learning everything we needed to know to bypass it entirely, President Lee added. The choice you face now is simple. Accept us as equals or watch us build a better galactic community without you. The chamber erupted in angry sounds again as species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia suddenly found themselves negotiating from a position of weakness. But the human demonstration had been too thorough, and their capabilities too overwhelming for any rational response except acceptance. Dr. Thelana spoke into the chaos with the calm voice of scientific analysis. We should accept their proposal. What? Zekmore demanded incredulously. Look at what they accomplished in just 2 centuries, Thelana explained. They went from a single-world civilization to a galactic power while we were debating whether to grant them junior membership status. Their technological advancement rate is unprecedented. Their strategic planning capabilities exceed our own. Their organizational efficiency is remarkable. You suggest we surrender to primitive upstarts? I suggest we recognize that they are no longer primitive and never were upstarts, Thelana replied firmly. They are simply different from us, and their differences make them formidable allies or dangerous enemies. Chairman Veltar called for a private consultation among council leadership, while the human representatives waited patiently. The discussion lasted for hours, as ancient alien civilizations struggled to accept that their dominance of galactic affairs was ending not through conquest, but through obsolescence. When the session resumed, Veltar's crystal formation had shifted to colors that indicated resigned acceptance. The Council agrees to consider restructuring galactic governance to provide more equitable representation for all species. Excellent, President Lee replied with obvious satisfaction. Human constitutional experts will be happy to assist in drafting new charter documents that ensure fair representation and democratic decision-making processes. When do you expect these negotiations to be completed? Asked the Mordian delegate. Within 1 standard year, Ambassador Kim answered. Of course, human military forces will remain in their current positions until the new system is fully operational to ensure a smooth transition. The implications were clear. Humanity would maintain their overwhelming tactical advantage until the aliens had committed to the new order and demonstrated their compliance with its principles. There would be no opportunity for the Council to agree to changes and then ignore them once human forces withdrew. What about our existing territorial claims and trade agreements? Asked a representative from the Velern Consortium. All existing. Arrangements will be honored provided they do not conflict with the principles of equal representation and fair treatment, Dr. Han replied. However, some adjustments may be necessary to eliminate practices that unfairly disadvantage younger species. Over the following hours, human negotiators outlined their vision for galactic governance with the same methodical precision they had shown in their military planning. Democratic institutions. Economic systems based on merit rather than tradition. Scientific collaboration that included all species rather than excluding those deemed insufficiently advanced. The aliens gradually realized they were not just changing their government, but transforming their entire civilization. The age of rule by ancient wisdom was ending, and the age of innovation and adaptation was beginning whether they liked it or not. There is one final matter, President Lee said as the session prepared to conclude. The human government wishes to make clear that this transformation represents an opportunity rather than a defeat. How so? Chairman Veltar asked with obvious skepticism. For too long, galactic civilization has been limited by the caution and conservatism of elder species, President Lee explained.